that I had actually was that how do you realize and deal with like biases or opinions when you're trying to make observations or making conversation with people? Because I feel like that judgment can kind of direct answers that you might get into a certain direction. And
from the interview?
Yeah, from the interview. From the interview.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I want to say that the interviewer is human, so judgment will come out at some point. But I'll give you an example of this. Two examples. The first is I was doing an interview with a Hindu man who had been born and raised in Pakistan. And through our interview, he was calling himself a Pakistani Hindu, and I was calling him Hindu Pakistan. And it went on for a long time. I think it spoke for 2 hours. And 1 hour of those 2 hours, I kept saying Hindu Pakistani, Hindu Pakistani, and he kept saying Pakistani Hindu. And it took me a while to realize what I was doing and what he was doing. He meant to say that his primary identifier was as Pakistani. That was his nationality. His religion was Pakistan. What I was doing is saying, oh, we share the same religion. Okay. But he didn't relate to that. So midway through the interview, I realized this and I changed it. I started saying Pakistani Hindu. And I changed it in the book also. And I made a mention that I made this bias because the oral historian, the ethnographer, the researcher is not devoid of bias. It's going to come out. Second example. Again, I am interviewing, and a lot of these things happen when you're interviewing the people you consider as the other. Right? And the other is not only the other across the border, it can just be the other in your own. Not always of religion, but it's someone who's different from you. So I'm interviewing a young woman who is about as old as me. Her family has originated in India, in UP. In 1947, they migrated to East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. In 1971, when Bangladesh was created, they moved to Pakistan proper, Karachi. So we are speaking, and this is at the end of our interview, and I say to her, okay, Isra, I'm just going to check all the details, so I hope I have this right. So your family migrated, and then you went to East Pakistan, and then your parents met in East Pakistan, and then you all migrated to Karachi. She said, yes, my parents met during partition. I said, no, it means like your parents met because their parents had lived through partition. She said, no, my parents met during partition. And I said, no, Isra, how is that possible? We are the same age. If I am 35 and you are 35, my parents are in their 60s. She said, yeah, so they met during partition. And then I stopped and I said, okay, I'm Indian, you're Pakistani. 1971, which is the breakup of Pakistan, they call it Dhaka, breakup of Dhaka, is a partition for you. She said, yeah, so my parents met in 1971 because of partition. And I said, okay. And she said, wait, why? What do you call 1971? I said, call it the Third India-Pakistan War. And she said, oh, we call it partition. And I said, what do you call 1947? Call it independence. So it's, it was rewiring of the brain because history is taught in different countries in different ways. Right? So the way in which she was taught, 1971 meant something different than 47, and the way in which Bangladeshis are taught is something different. And the way in which Indians are taught it, something different. So I think a lot of ethnographic work is constantly knowing that you have to unlearn stuff.
Yes. Just a note for all of you, if you don't realize, all those dials up there with green lights are microphones and they are on. So all those little chatters that you're having, we can hear you. So please can you stop talking out of respect to the question, person asking the question, and of course out of respect to our guests, please can we not have these small conversations? Not because it's disturbing and we can hear you. So be careful. Yes, yeah.
Any other? Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Let's, okay. After that, can the people in the front ask some more questions, please? Yeah.
My question is that you said you interview a lot of people. For example, you want to interview somebody who has migrated from Sindh during a particular time, and now this family is dispersed into Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, or Calcutta, everywhere. How do you find these? Like these people are not necessarily famous people. You like these are not necessarily famous. Like these are common people.
Yeah. All the people I interview are common people.
So how do we find them? Like this is the particular person I want to interview, and then how do you reach to them? Like I want to interview you, and like how do you comfort them so that they speak everything and what they speak is truth?
How do you find people is your first question, right? But in particular with Sindhis or general?
General.
Okay. Sindhis are a good example. Let's take that. So, are you Sindhi? Okay. So, as you know, Sindhis, they are called people of the lost land. They, unlike Punjab or Bengal, did not have any physical part of Sindh. The problem with losing land is that all of the intangible things associated with it, like language and customs, language particularly, I think, for Sindhi, also disappears in a generation or two. So I don't know if you speak Sindhi, but maybe your parents do. Right, very common. Gandhi called them people who I think. So Sindhis are great examples because where you find one, you're going to find many because they live in clusters. Like one of the biggest migrant populations of Sindhis is in Bangalore, in Calcutta, they're in Delhi, they're of course in Gujarat, but they're also in Jaipur, which should tell you how they migrated. They came closest from the Thar and from Karachi, places like Rajasthan and Maharashtra and Gujarat. But then they were given land by the government in places like Karnataka and West Bengal and the North, right? So if the Sindhi went to one interview, they will always say, oh, you must interview this other person. Acha, listen, you must interview this person also. Oh, you are interested? They have a shop, a Sindhi shop, you must go see it. And so many people with partition are like that. When you interview one person, they will usually give you a reference of another, which means you'll always have a personal connection to the person you're interviewing. And how you get to their homes is you travel. I've traveled to different cities, I've missed my flights, it's all kinds of people, ordinary people. Part of the issue is that they're always very surprised that you want to interview them, especially because they're so ordinary. So they will say, oh, I'm not Nehru and I'm not Jha and I'm not Gandhi. I don't have any big stories. 3 hours about these incredible stories of sacrifice and reunion, and it's very meaningful. But I think the acknowledgement that poignant stories come from ordinary people has to be the drive behind ethnographic work. You're not, maybe you're not going to find like, I don't know, Manmohan Singh's story. But you're going to find 10 stories identical to it to people who were never given any importance, right? So yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's small work. Like the work is small, but then it grows. I don't know. Does it answer your question? Yeah. Yes.
Just one question that how do you understand the unspoken behind the spoken when people tell their stories? I mean, people are bound to they know some secrets, but they are bound to something that they can't tell it. But they indirectly let you know that this is the thing that how can you understand that?
That's such a good question. Because in my field, which is of partition studies, silence is the loudest language. And it's something that the generation that lived through partition practiced quite vehemently. And I don't know whether it was the fact that they didn't want to talk about it or the fact that they didn't know how to talk about it. I think that the vocabulary to talk about partition is still being formed because it's not only verbal and it can't be verbal. So when you're sitting with people, you're talking to them and they're trying to explain their migration, let's say from one city to another, and you come to a point in the conversation where it's very violent. I remember the lady said to me, okay, we were in a caravan and I saw a woman. Actually, would you mind if I don't say that because you know what I mean? And I realized that she said, you know what I mean. And I already knew what she meant, what was going to happen to that woman. And I'm sure you do as well. So the question is, despite the fact that partition has such a silent vocabulary, there is a very prominent shared imagery across generations that no one has taught us, but we know already. So you tap into that. You tap into the shared vocabulary, the popular culture. When I say partition, you think, wait, it's an image that everyone knows, unfortunately. And much of what I've tried to do in the last 15 years is to make people think of other things around partition, not just the violence. But unfortunately, we already have a shared vocabulary about it. So when you are interviewing people and they pause, or they cry, or they say, okay, enough, you make a note of that because it's monumental in the conversation. The pause and the silence is as important as the words. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So earlier in the research world, the research would be very easy. But now in the modern AI world, and when there are a lot of political influencers,
The research is
no, I'm asking, would be comparatively easy compared to the modern AI world and the modern political influencers, and there are many factors that have come into the world which were not earlier. So, what are the modern factors that affect researching?
AI.
Sorry,
AI
AI is the modern factor,
It
and
affects my research.
right, and there are a lot of political influencers and fake PR people, and they're creating false information.
You could think versions of that existed in the past also.
Right.
Like there are always it depends on who you're speaking to, right? And where they come from, what their position is, what their political affiliation is. They'll always see subversive elements. Right? But I don't want AI to write history. I want AI to find a way to make my dog live as long as I live. Right? Like AI writing history is I don't know. I can't even imagine it. I don't know when they're going to draw information from. But it's a fear. It's a fear that I have, and I'm sure there are other concerns in this modern world as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cluster here, please. Some questions from here, the front. Anyone? You? Or anyone in the city?
You're gonna make them write paper about flash, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I want. There you go.
Yeah. I'm in my fourth year, and I basically wanted to know more about your history, like how you started working, like listen.
Well, I trained as a metal engraver. I have 10 years of education and 2 degrees in metal engraving. That's my only formal education. After that, I worked with a publishing house, a literary agency. I worked with the Archaeological Survey, and now I'm here. But my only formal education is in the visual art. We have a follow-up question.
I think because this particular work is very difficult. That skill of making people comfortable asking the questions like of such a traumatic event that they had, which they were not even able to see. Like creating the environment, asking those questions. That skill is amazing.
I mean, you learn it, right? The thing you have to learn the most is that it's not about you. The problem that young people, myself included, have that it think the world around us. It does not. So the minute you realize that a 103-year-old man is telling a story how he fought in World War II, he jumped from a plane into a forest, and then he went and saved 10 people. it has nothing to do with me. I'm just listening to it. And maybe because of this recording, his story is going to be heard by so many more people. Or the fact that a woman saved many children during partition from being slaughtered. Or I mean, what I'm trying to say is that the focus must be on the person who's telling the story. And you must genuinely be interested in listening to that story. So when I'm doing this work or when I started doing this work, I never had a questionnaire. When they would answer, I would ask the question based on what they've said, which means that you have to really listen to what the person is saying. And if you're working with an older generation, they need reassurance that you're listening to them. Like, have you ever tried to sit with your grandparents but you get bored after 10 minutes? And you have stuff to do, and they're like, okay, well, I'll see you later. You go and they're still sitting and watching TV. I think that we really have to spend time with older people because they are inherently quite lonely. They are quite lonely. So if you're sitting with them for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and 8 hours, because you're making intergenerational connection, that's how you learn how to do it. Like, I spent from the age of 17 to the age of 26, I worked in a studio, in a printing studio. I didn't know how to interview. Learn on the job. Just like if you pick a profession you haven't trained for, you're going to learn on the job. But in those cases, I think people are more committed because they're trying to prove something about that profession as well.
I have a follow-up comment, not so much a question to your question about your opinion, how you got it. And the answer that you got that you spent 10 years doing is learning metal engraving. And now you are doing oral history and writing books. And that, I think about that. Because we professors get a lot of students coming in. So I'm doing this BBA with major in finance. Where will I be 10 years from now? What does this education take me to? Forget it. Forget 10 years from now. We don't know where we will be from 10 years from now. You may have nothing to do with finance. You may have nothing to do with metal engraving. So I think we get too caught up in that narrow that I have studied finance. So I must find a long-term 30-year career in finance. Branch of photography, oral history, or dancing, whatever. So don't get too hung up on long-term future in that narrow profession that you think you are being trained for these 4 years in the university.
I also think taking a chance is a very good thing. You know, like maybe you may be training for something in a degree and you may have a chance to do something else just as an offshoot or a hobby. And you might actually see that you really shine in that. That your professor with passion for food is enormous. And I'm always in awe of the stories you have about food. So it could become something should you do it. But I do think like there is a fear. I mean, as a young person, like when I was starting off, it was a lot of kya kar rahe ho, logo se sawal puch rahe ho, pure logon ke sath baith rahe ho. It was a lot of this. My family also used to say, what are you going to do with this? But I think the longer you do it, the sharper it becomes. And whatever you studied is going to contribute to that.
Yeah, that was the other point I thought we should make is there is no such thing as wasted education. What maybe the eye for detail that metal engraving taught you would have helped you in that eye for detail you needed.
I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a book called Desperately Seeking Shah Rukh Khan. Who's heard that? Nobody? Who likes Shah Rukh Khan? Nobody.
Everyone likes.
Everyone, but everyone's embarrassed to say they like him. But that's what he's saying. So anyway, there's a book called Judging Everyone But Shah Rukh Khan Live. Desperately Seeking Shah Rukh Khan. It is a book about economy and women and the desire that women have to be seen. And Shah Rukh Khan provides a great example in that when women watch movies about Shah Rukh Khan, they feel better about themselves. Have any women felt this in here, like when you watch Shah Rukh Khan movie, you feel happy, you feel. No? Generation. Anyway, it's about
We have discovered in class there are some questions that people don't answer.
That's okay. But the book is about the economics of desire, particularly among women. And it's written by an economist who works at the World Bank. So she spent like 15 years doing this research, talking to women about Shah Rukh Khan, and then she wrote this book. And she managed to combine her interests, Shah Rukh Khan, and economy, while still keeping a job at the World Bank, which is very cool. No one agrees. Yes. Yes, okay. Yeah, no, okay. You and then someone had a, yeah, we'll go to you right after. Go ahead.
So since the partition, my audible. So since the partition was such a harrowing and jarring time for many, to say the least, I'm presuming some of your interviewees must have also felt a lot of distress when recounting memories of the partition. Then after conducting such emotionally heavy interviews, how do you decide what to include and what to leave out?
If I ever took out anything that was harrowing, there was no reason to eat the truth. So if someone says I watched step on my mother's neck and shattered it in front of my eyes, I've written it. Because if you start to sanitize the details of what happened, you might as well not write about it. Yes.
No, I completely understand that building relationship and having empathy while taking interviews. Building relationship and having empathy while taking interviews very crucial. That you answered to the question there. But you mentioned that you don't have questionnaire with you, which was quite a surprise for me. So that led me to thinking that you didn't have the questionnaire for the. So that led me to think that objectives are very one of the most important part of what research we do.
Yes.
So depending on the stories you hear from different sides of the, does your objectives also really change or they are very static from starting?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, objective remains the same. The way to ask the question may be different because while I didn't have a questionnaire, I would always ask the person beforehand, where did you come from and where did you go? Because then I could do a little research about what happened in that particular area during construction. So my questions were very specific to that person. I didn't want to, I suppose, diminish the personal experience by having the exact same question because I was looking for diversity of answers. That being said, I'm doing a project right now which is not concentrated on any one historical event or any one historical region. It's very, very, very big, very vast. So I do have a questionnaire because I want to hone in on something specific. I have written it down. It's the first time I've done it. But I have.
But are there any additions to your initial objectives of the research while you are doing the process?
I follow the same questionnaire for everybody, but I'll omit questions that are irrelevant or things that people answer already. Right? Nothing changes. This is no objective changes. The objective is the same. Yes.
So your work deals with emotions and memory, right? So many a times it can be fragmented.
Yes.
So how do you deal with the contradictions and the gaps which people have in their recollection of memory and emotions?
Yes. Great question, and the only way to deal with it is to embrace it. I'll give you an example. I interviewed a lady, a very elderly lady in Delhi many years ago. She passed away now. She was a writer. And her family moved from Punjab to Kalyan. Kalyan is in Maharashtra, right outside Bombay. And I interviewed her many times. So I went back again and again and again. Because she was getting quite old and also she couldn't, when old people, their teeth start to have more tension, so it's very difficult to understand them. So I went back again and again and again to confirm things. First time I went, she told me a story of when she migrated from Punjab to Kalyan. They left in the middle of the night And a bus came to pick them up and rounded a lot of people up and took them together. She said, I was cooking a roti and it happened so suddenly that the roti was burnt and we had to leave. So the entire time I kept thinking, has the roti burnt? Has the roti burnt? Has the roti burnt? Second time I went, she told me the same thing. Third time I went, her daughter was sitting with her. And again, I wanted to confirm with her, I think what date they left. So I said, you told me that when you had this roti and you were wearing a black shawl, she called it chadar, black chadar. And you left in the night, and then these people came to round you up and took you to the police station. She says, yes, and when we got to the train station, there was no train in sight. And so we waited and waited. It was very quiet. And it was still very quiet. Because in those days, people would come out of the trains and kill people. So she says, I remember thinking कि हम बच गए. कोई train से नहीं निकला, compartments सारी शांत हैं, हम बच गए. Then we went on to the train and we saw why it was quiet because everyone had been killed in the train. So what I did and what my family did is that we put bodies on top of ourselves and lay on the ground, and all the dead bodies were on top of us. And then the train went. And her daughter said, but you've never told me this. Are you sure this is how it happened? She said, and it really surprised me that she said that. She said there was never any need to talk about it before this. Now, I can only speculate on why the omission had been made so many times in the past, not just with me, but her daughter as well. And what happened in that final time that she felt the need or required really to say what she said? Was it because someone had come so many times to talk to her? Was it because we were writing a story? Was it because she was finally ready to talk about that time? I don't know. Memory is not perfect. Memory is it's not a camera. I said that before also. It's not a recording device. Why certain things come up at the time that they do and why they are triggered with things from the present. You can't really explain that. You can only record it and you can only speculate on it. It stayed with me.
Thank you.
Soon. Any last burning questions which you have to ask? Yeah. Yes, please.
You said, and especially your research area is very emotionally intense and very sensitive. So, how do you or how does the researcher maintain their objective, not sort of maintain or not form biases while transcripting the interview?
Transcript of the interview will be identical to the words of it. And if you think so don't do that. I think that I answered this to somebody earlier also. You can't ignore your bias. You have a bias, it's gonna come out without you even doing that. What you can do is try to unlearn that bias by realizing that it's come up and saying, oh, I didn't know that I thought this. Right? For instance, in some research that I did at the time that I was writing, a few family members from a particular family spoke about Muslims. They were Hindu, they spoke about Muslims, and they said things like, पार्टीशन के बाद हम लोग मुसलमानों के साथ बात नहीं करते थे और उनके साथ ये नहीं जाते थे, ये नहीं करते थे, वो interview, I wrote it down, I heard the interview, I typed it out. Now, after I write a story, I always take it back and say, this is what I have. Can you please give me permission to publish it? So they know what is being written about them and they are okay. Sometimes people will say, oh, this name is spelled wrong, or listen, I don't want you to mention this thing about my mother. Whatever they are comfortable with. These two members of the family are like, we didn't say this. We didn't say this. I said, get it. See something written down, but it's also difficult to stay. So not only does your own bias come out as a researcher, sometimes they are prepared back it and sometimes they are not. So in this case, they had me remove those lines. I did it. But I know what the recording
If we bias, we have, I think, in some of our, in some of our classes, we have often talked about this word that we keep saying, flexibility, which is be aware that when you are interviewing someone, you are not just getting their objective story, you are overlaying your worldview and your biases onto the stories. And which, as human beings, unless AI is doing these, we'll always have bias. Being aware is all you can. Removing is very important. This last one from you, before we move on, is in our title storyteller. So all of this that we have done, they make a story out of it, and why is it important? Make a story. I can't just paint it as it is. What who are storytellers, and why do we keep hearing this phrase that the future belongs to
Otherwise, the story is a unique form in that it has persisted for generations in different forms, whether it be cave painting or Ye Dil Mange More, the ad slogan. A story is the recreation of life, and it gives us joy and pleasure. And the continuity of civilization depends on the stories that we tell about ourselves now and those that we pass down. You and I won't be alive. God, I don't know, we may die tomorrow, but the stories we leave behind are the ways in which people will remember us.
in this day, many people refer to AI, this AI world, at least the level of sophistication that AI has reached today, almost everything else can be done by machines and robots in AI. The only thing AI is still not very good at is telling stories. That's where people like you come in, because AI will tell you as is. It won't.
I cannot tell you the depth of the human heart. You
Yes.
can't.
Yeah.
It will only borrow from depths that it finds on the internet. The only that.
So, like for students who are getting into the world of work and careers and life, most things that we study in the university will be redundant a few years from now. Like you won't be needed to make a profit and loss account or make PowerPoint presentations or make a balance sheet or write briefs and documents. They're already being done by AI. What we will be needed for human beings like you who are getting to the world of work is how do you make sense of all of that which AI has given you and extract stories out of it. That's all. Everything else will be done. Writing questionnaires, doing data collection, making pie charts, all is being done by machines. The only thing that we'll have is how do I rise above that and tell a story. Have a view on that? Is that true or not?
Of course, it's true. And if AI is using our books how to write.
But today, at the level of technology that we stand, AI cannot write a book of everlasting. It may 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it cannot. So that's where storytelling comes in. That's where I think we keep saying in class, don't focus too much on the mechanics of doing things. Machines can do it for you. Focus on the so what. So what if you have shown me this pie chart? What is the story? Keep looking for the story, not for the data. Data someone will find a way to do it without you. Done? Anything?
Thank you.
Right? Uh, while today we talked about what's under the hood of doing the research to write those books, do find the time to read some of these books. They are amazingly insightful into this whole thing. Many of you said you have family connections with parties, and especially those people. Please do find the time to read. I have heard partition stories in my family for 50 years, but what I found in these books I had never heard before. You will find surprising things about partition.